Spoilers! Yeah, people, Avengers Infinity War has been out for, well, a while. And it's about high time I got to my spoiler talk about the movie, because there's so much shit that happened in this movie. It was mind-blowing. So yeah, that is a spoiler warning. I don't know how, in what universe you might not have seen this movie yet. And even if you haven't yet, it's probably been spoiled for you by someone else already. But just in case you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want spoilers, please leave, because there are some huge spoilers in here. Spoilers that I didn't see coming, that you didn't see coming, that no one saw coming. Spoilers that blew my mind whole. So let's get started. Let's jump right into the beginning of the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, HQ's live. Guess I'll be missing it. So the movie starts out actually continuing from that mid-credits scene in Thor Ragnarok. You remember that scene, you know, the population of Asgard, they're in that giant ship and they're just leaving. I think they're going to Earth. And suddenly their trip is cut short when they're suddenly ambushed by Thanos' giant warship. And so that's what happened. Thanos and his crew pretty much just wrecked house. They wrecked everything. They killed, I think, everyone. So yeah, now Asgard just doesn't exist anymore. Asgard is gone. All of its people are gone. And when Thanos arrives, he already has one of the Infinity Stones, the Power Stone, which was the orb in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I mean, I would have liked to have seen how Thanos obtained this first stone. I mean, Thor says it in like a throwaway line later on. He's like, oh yeah, last week Thanos decimated Xandar and he got the Power Stone. I was like, oh, okay. That whole planet where the peacekeeping force, the Nova Corps, and Glenn Close, they were all based on Xandar, and Thanos just wreaked havoc and stole the orb, I guess. I mean, I get that you can kind of put that together in your head. You maybe don't need to see it, but I just would have liked to have seen it. Maybe in like an extended edition we might get. Maybe. Probably not. But anyways, he has come for the Tesseract, which holds the Space Stone, and he gets it from Loki. See, I told you he had it. You really are the worst, brother. And yeah, you do have that big toe-to-toe Thanos versus Hulk fight where Thanos beats the hell out of the Hulk, breaks his nose, pretty much turns the Hulk into a bitch because he refuses to come out of Bruce Banner through the rest of the movie. Hulk is like, no, I don't want to fight Thanos again. Hulk is used to being the strongest there is. Now he's not anymore. That's probably why he doesn't want to come out. We'll see him again in Avengers 4 though. But Heimdall beams Hulk back down to Earth, which gets him killed. R.I.P. Heimdall. Heimdall was a badass in the Thor movies, and now he's dead. And as if that weren't enough, Loki. Loki was a lot of people's favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He was one of my favorite characters. Tom Hiddleston made Loki. Granted, one of the biggest predictions I heard before this movie was coming out, it was that Loki was going to die within the first 5 minutes by Thanos' hand. And sure enough, that is quite literally what happened. Loki tries to pull a fast one on Thanos, but you don't try to pull any fast ones on Thanos. You'll get killed. Thanos just takes him by the throat and just squeezes the life out of him. Just I was like, oh, well, that's pleasant. I love his last words though, you will never be a god. I just like that line coming from the god of mischief. But yeah, then they just blow the ship up and Thor's left floating out in space. Bruce Banner lands down in New York City at the Sanctum Sanctorum where Doctor Strange and Wong are hanging out. Then it cuts to the title. Then we get to Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, they're hanging out, and it's always nice to see Pepper Potts again. And breaking news, they're engaged. So I guess that scene at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming was legit. When Tony was like, yeah, toss me the engagement ring. Like I said in my spoiler talk for Spider-Man Homecoming, that scene left it very open. I wasn't really sure where it was going. It might have just been a joke, it might have been legit. Turns out it was legit. So now they're engaged, good for them. But Pepper still hates the fact that Tony Stark still has to be Iron Man. He's still living with that fear in his head of, oh, there are aliens up there, the end game is coming, and then Doctor Strange arrives to tell him it's here. And I just love the fact that Tony Stark and Stephen Strange are just at each other's throats throughout most of the movie. These two Sherlocks, man, they hate each other. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what they were really fighting about. They were fighting about who's the better Sherlock Holmes. Which, I mean, if you've seen the BBC Sherlock, then you'll know there's no competition. I mean, he calls Tony Stark a douchebag right to his face. That takes balls. But then Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian come down to Earth in that big space donut. Spider-Man senses it and he swings over. Again, why is Spidey so badass in Marvel movies that are not his? Like when he swings out of the bus that Stan Lee was driving and he goes under the bridge and you see him just whoosh right into the city. I was like, that's my Spider-Man. But when they all go up into space, it's Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Tony Stark. That's when Spider-Man gets his Iron Spider armor. And okay. In the videos I made where I mentioned the Iron Spider armor, I'm pretty sure I mentioned those legs he has every time. Because I was like, yeah, the Iron Spider armor has legs. Why doesn't it have it in this movie? Oh, it does. They just didn't want to spoil it in the trailer. When the legs came out for the first time, I was like, yeah! Then again, a picture of a Lego set kind of spoiled it for me. But even then, I was like, maybe they're just not in the movie. Maybe that's just for the Lego set. And I saw that Lego set like months before the movie came out, so I still wasn't too sure. So when they showed up in the movie, I was like, thank God. They're so awesome. And it's all like nanotech shit too. I mean, Tony Stark's new Iron Man suit, it's nanotech. That's like an enormous upgrade. He's got like these giant shields and like, you know, big, huge clubs on his arms. He can just make all sorts of weird shapes out of his armor now. He was never able to do anything like that in any of the other Marvel movies he's been in. At least not that I can remember, and I'm a hardcore MCU fan. So now Doctor Strange and Iron Man and Spider-Man, they're all in the space donut. They go to Titan after defeating Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw I thought was actually pretty cool. Out of Thanos' children, he was the one who had the most to say. First off, I love how Tony Stark called him Squidward. That made me laugh out loud. I mean, his dialogue wasn't the greatest. You know, he was all like, hear me and rejoice. I'm a basic henchman, and I'm British. He was just monologuing, but like his powers, he had telekinesis, he can just move things with his mind, and he was so calm about it. Like some hero would be like just charging at him, giving it all he's got, and he just like, just swipes him away like Tinder. So how do we defeat him? Well, reference another older movie, Aliens. Just blow him out of an airlock. I mean, didn't that happen in the first Alien movie too? And then when Spider-Man goes to save Doctor Strange from being tucked out too, that's when the legs show up for the first time. I was like, yes. Yes, all of my yes. Jumping over to another story with some more characters, we got Vision and Scarlet Witch. They're hanging out in Scotland. It looks like they just want to live a simple, quiet life. And again, I'm completely fine with Scarlet Witch's Sokovian accent being gone. I explained why in my review, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. But when this sweet couple is attacked by Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive, the whole fight that goes down between the four of them isn't really that interesting until Steve Rogers, Falcon, and Black Widow showed up. When Steve Rogers showed up behind the train and you just see his silhouette, the audience around me went nuts, and so did I. That was such a badass reveal, man. He just comes out of the shadows, and you hear that Avengers theme queuing up in the background. Da-da-dun, 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 da-da-dun. You're just like, aw shit, it's about to go down. And then Falcon shows up, and then Blonde Widow shows up. These veteran Avengers. They're here to kick ass. So after that, they go back to the Avengers compound, the one in upstate New York, where they meet up with War Machine, Colonel Rhodes, who now can walk again, I guess, due to some device I presume Tony Stark made, which makes me wonder what was the point of crippling him in the first place? Like, he's walking again and he's completely fine. And also, Bruce Banner is there. So he gets reunited with Natasha Romanoff, and I actually really like their romance. I liked it in Age of Ultron. I thought they had good chemistry. But I guess not a lot of other people did, because it's not really explored or expanded much in this movie. They come to the conclusion that Thanos is going to eventually come for the Mind Stone in Vision's head, and if they can remove it somehow and still save Vision, they can just destroy the Mind Stone so Thanos can't succeed. But they don't have the technology to do such a thing. But Steve Rogers knows exactly where to go. This is another moment where the audience went nuts, because he's like, I know a place. And you hear the drums queuing up. You're all just like, oh man, Wakanda, yeah! Yeah! It's just like that wide shot of Wakanda with the Black Panther theme music going on in the background. It was awesome, dude. Yeah, I am still bummed out that we didn't hear other themes from previous Marvel movies in this one, but I liked hearing the one from Black Panther. So Cap and crew go to Wakanda where they meet Black Panther and Okoye and Shuri, and Bucky is there as well with his new vibranium arm, which is badass because it's blue, which is my favorite color. And so Shuri is going to try to remove the Mind Stone from Vision's head. Okay, jumping over to another storyline with another group of characters, the Guardians of the Galaxy. They are the ones that actually answer the distress call sent from the Asgardian population ship, and that's where they bump into Thor. And when Thor meets the Guardians, you know, that's where the humor started to kind of misfire for me, because the comedy in Thor Ragnarok, which obviously, like, the vibe from that movie still stuck around in Thor's character in this movie, he's still kind of like goofy, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are the very definition of goofy. But I guess at this point, Peter Quill and Gamora do have a romance going on. They're in a relationship because they kiss. But when Peter Quill meets Thor for the first time, they gotta have a measuring contest. Thor's like, okay, I'm gonna use one of your pods so I can go to Nidavellir to forge a new weapon. Peter Quill's just like, no, you're not! You know, he's trying to seem all macho in front of this super ripped Australian Asgardian. I thought that was pretty funny. Star-Lord had some pretty funny lines in this movie. Drax had none, but Star-Lord had some. So Rocket and Groot joined Thor on his journey to Nidavellir to forge a new weapon that could possibly kill Thanos. While Star-Lord, Drax, Gamora, and Mantis head off to, I think they just go to Titan. Or actually, no, they go to Nowhere first to try to get the Reality Stone from the Collector before Thanos does. But of course, by the time they get there, it's too late. Thanos already has it. I did like the scene where Thanos has Gamora right in front of him, and Peter Quill has his gun pointed at her, and Gamora wants him to kill her because she knows where one of the other Infinity Stones is, and she doesn't want Thanos to know, so she wants Peter Quill to just shoot her. They confess their love, and Peter Quill actually does pull the trigger. I was like, holy shit. He actually would have done it had the gun just not burst into bubbles. That takes balls. That's one of the big themes in this movie is, what would you choose, love or the mission? That decision has to be made by quite a few characters throughout this entire movie. I mean, when Thanos takes Gamora to Vormir, which is where the Soul Stone is, we now know where the Soul Stone is. It's a question that's been asked by fans since the Infinity Stones were first announced in the MCU. And now we know it was on Vormir, some desolate planet, and it was being guarded by none other than Red Skull. I mean, when he first shows up, you don't know who he is because he's just some shrouded figure in a cloak levitating above the ground with kind of a strange accent in his voice. And then when he comes out of the shadows and you see the Red Skull's face, everyone in the audience was like, what? That is the big spoiler I think of when I think of mind-blowing things that happen in this movie. The first thing that comes to my mind is Red Skull showing up. I was like, holy shit. This movie actually did tie up a loose end that was made years ago. End of Captain America 1. Red Skull took the Tesseract and he was beamed up into space, supposedly. Now we know where he's been for the past 70 plus years. He's become the Stone Keeper. And he explains to Thanos that in order to obtain the Soul Stone, he has to sacrifice something he loves. A soul for a soul, he says. And this is the scene where I was like, wait, Thanos actually does care about Gamora? Really? Because he turns around and he has tears in his eyes and Gamora's like, really? Tears? You never cared about me. You never cared about anyone but yourself. Right there, I knew that Thanos was going to sacrifice Gamora, which, this is actually a true story. This is pretty funny. The day I saw the movie for the first time, I was with a couple of friends. We had dinner beforehand. The waiter came up to us. He was like, who do you think is gonna die? And Gamora came up in the conversation, and I was like, no, she's too important of a character to die. She's not gonna die in this movie. She's too important of a character. She's one of the main Guardians of the Galaxy. She's Star-Lord's love interest. Yeah, oops on that. Thanos just grabs her and throws her over the cliff. Gamora is dead now, supposedly. Supposedly. And Thanos obtains the Soul Stone. That's 4 out of 6 now. Jumping over to Nidavellir with Thor, Rocket, and Groot, when they get there, they meet giant dwarf king Peter Dinklage. I was like, oh, Peter Dinklage? That's just mean. You know, Peter Dinklage is really short in real life, and they just made him a giant dwarf. A giant dwarf? That's kind of oxymoronic. I don't know, that's just the way I see it. That's just mean, making him giant like that. And you find out that he and this whole place, this is where he made the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos came down, requested him to make something that was capable of harnessing the power of all the Infinity Stones. So after he did, he just wiped out everyone there except for him, and he took away his hands, so now he has metal hands. So now he's like, Thor, you must forge a new weapon that can destroy Thanos. It's called the Stormbreaker. I drink and I know things. So that's what he does. And I think it's really cool that part of this new weapon is, it's part Groot. Groot just grabs the handle and just cuts off his own arm. He's like, ah! I'm like, I think it's really cool that Thor has a weapon that's part Groot. I just think that's really cool. It's a really nice touch. Back on Titan, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Spider-Man meet up with Star-Lord, Mantis, Drax. That's where you get the really great dialogue between Iron Man and Star-Lord. He calls Drax Mr. Clean. I thought that was hilarious. Also, one of my favorite humorous lines is like, Doctor Strange is all like, what master do you serve? And Star-Lord's like, what am I supposed to say, Jesus? I'm half human, so that 50% of me that's stupid, that's 100% you. Your math is blowing my mind right now. It's the kind of banter that makes me wonder who wrote it. Was it ad-libbed on set or was it written by one of the writers? But later on, Doctor Strange does something that is like a pivotal plot point in the entire movie. He looks into the future using the Time Stone to try to see any kind of possible outcome in which the heroes are victorious. In the end, he found over 14 million possible outcomes. And out of all those outcomes, there is only one outcome in which the heroes are victorious. That is the highest stakes can ever get. So I'm guessing this one outcome he saw in which the heroes are victorious, he knows what has to go down. That's super important, because when Thanos arrives on Titan, he has a battle with all these guys. He is fighting Spider-Man, he's pinning him to the ground, he's fighting against Doctor Strange, which the Doctor Strange Thanos fight was so visually just nerdgasm. He does like the multiple arm thing, and then he makes a bunch of clones of himself. I was like, that is so Doctor Strange, and he does the mirror dimension thing, and he pushes the mirror dimension towards Thanos. I was like, awesome. But then it gets to the point where Thanos is squaring off against Tony Stark, and actually Thanos knew who Tony Stark was, which was surprising to me. He's like, Stark. To which he responds, you know me? I do. You're not the only one who's cursed with knowledge. My only curse is you. That's great dialogue. You know, it shows that Thanos is up to date on what's been happening across the universe. He knows who Iron Man is, so when Iron Man starts attacking him, he's like, come on! I love that, that was great. But in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, Iron Man's gonna single-handedly take Thanos down. That's not gonna happen. Iron Man's gonna lose this fight, and it's gonna hurt. And sure enough, Thanos impales Tony Stark using his own, you know, Iron Man armor blade that comes out of his wrist. He breaks it off and just impales Tony Stark. The audience was like, Tony Stark is gonna die in this movie. And I was like, no, no, no. There have been plenty of situations in movies or TV shows or whatever where someone's been impaled, like through the stomach or something, but still lived. I mean, granted, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. But Doctor Strange is like, no, spare his life and I will just freely give you the Time Stone. To which at first I was like, he wouldn't do that. I thought he told Tony Stark that if it came down to choose between him or the Time Stone, he would not hesitate to let Tony Stark die. So the fact that he did choose Tony Stark's life over the Time Stone confused me at first. I was like, why the hell did he do that? It's not like he suddenly gained respect for him or anything. And it took some thinking. I was like, oh, it must have been part of this outcome in which the heroes are victorious, which he confirms later on when he says there was no other way. This is how it has to go down. So now Thanos has the Time Stone, 5 out of 6, and then he's gone. We're in the end game now. The final showdown in the movie is in Wakanda, where the last of the Infinity Stones, the Mind Stone, is on Vision. They're in Wakanda. And so there's this giant war with this army of ravenous outriders that are just mindless, they're nothings. And Bruce Banner is in the Hulkbuster armor all like, yeah, Mark Ruffalo, ah! Again, the Hulk still doesn't want to come out because he's being a bitch. But Steve Rogers is there, he's fighting with his new Wakanda Black Panther shield thingy. Scarlet Witch is protecting Vision while Shuri operates on him. Black Panther is there, and the Jabari tribe, and the Dora Milaje, the whole Wakandan army, they're all fighting, which again, you still gotta love that Black Panther, Ibombe! Ibombe! Although M'Baku's chant wins. Masa! Hu! Hu! Masa! Hu! It's just more fun. And Black Widow and Bucky and Falcon and War Machine, everyone's down there fighting, and they manage to kill off the other 3 children of Thanos, but it does still seem like they're gonna lose. That's when Thor, Rocket, and Groot come down. Dude, yes! When Thor, Rocket, and Groot came down to Earth, first of all, the fact that Rocket and Groot came down to Earth, they're on Earth now, and that Avengers theme is just in full blast. Dun, 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 dun. Thor's all like, bring me Thanos! And then he leaps into the air. This is the badass Thor moment I was talking about in my review. He leaps into the air, he does a Superman pose, rah! You see thunder come around, he's just, rah! My literal reaction, I was like, whoa! That has got to be the hands down most badass Thor moment yet in the entire MCU. Most badass Thor moment ever. But pretty soon it doesn't matter because it gets to the point where Thanos comes down to Earth finally at the end of the movie to obtain the Mind Stone, and that's where Scarlet Witch has to destroy the Mind Stone. It's too late for Shuri to, get it out of him. Vision has to fight now, and he impales one of the children of Thanos. We don't trade lives, Captain. And Scarlet Witch is tearing up as she ends up having to destroy the Mind Stone. She's in tears. This scene takes like 5 minutes, and I was completely buying Scarlet Witch's emotion. She's tearing up. Again, her life sucks. First her brother, now this. And Thanos is pushing, he's trying to stop Scarlet Witch, but the Mind Stone blows up, and Vision blows up, and Vision just disintegrates along with the Mind Stone, and the Mind Stone is gone. And I was like, no, Thanos is just gonna reverse time and get the Mind Stone anyways. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. He reverses time, you see Vision come back together, and then he just picks him up by the neck, and just goes, just rips the Mind Stone right out of his head. You see Vision just lose all of his color, and he just throws Vision to the ground like a rag doll. Vision's dead now, which we all predicted he would be when he was first created 3 years ago. So now Thanos has done it. He has obtained all 6 Infinity Stones. And he doesn't have that much time to revel in his glory because all of a sudden Stormbreaker comes out of nowhere, drives right into his chest. I was like, oh, shit. But this isn't gonna stop Thanos, right? He's gonna live through this. He's like, you should have gone for the head. Boom! Holy shit, has he done it? He wakes up in this, kind of limbo state. It's all just orange everywhere. And he sees his child Gamora under, it looks like some sort of Asian-style gazebo. And I had no idea what this was until I was looking it up on the internet just recently. And some theories have said this is inside the Soul Stone. To which I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. Which is probably going to be explored more in the next Avengers movie. I guess inside the Soul Stone is this whole other, world. And maybe Gamora is still alive in there. Maybe when Thanos sacrificed Gamora and got the Soul Stone back, maybe Gamora was still alive inside the Soul Stone. I don't know. Something like that. I heard a theory. I read a few articles about it. But long story short, little Gamora's like, did you do it? Yes. What did it cost? Everything. Again, I didn't really buy that it cost him that much. All the stones came pretty easily to him. I'm just saying. So when he comes back, you see the Infinity Gauntlet is just, it's fried. I don't know, his whole arm is burnt or something. I don't know, maybe it was damaged from the giant thing it just did, which I'm about to talk about, because Thanos gets out of there, he teleports away, and the Stormbreaker weapon drops to the ground, so he's completely healed except for his arm, but he's not in any critical condition. But then you see Thanos' goal come to fruition. Half the population just starts fading away into dust. And now we get to say a temporary goodbye, at least I think it's a temporary goodbye, to some of our favorite Avengers. The first to go is Bucky. He just kind of drops to the ground and just fades, and his gun just kind of plops to the ground, and you see nothing there. The audience was like, and I was like, holy shit, Bucky's just gone. And then Black Panther goes. That's where I was like, yeah, okay, they're gonna come back, because everyone loved the hell out of Black Panther. The movie was freaking awesome. It's gonna have a sequel, which means Black Panther has to come back. Spoiler alert. So it's Bucky, Black Panther, Scarlet Witch goes, Falcon goes, Groot goes, and over on Titan you see more people disappearing. Drax disappears, Mantis disappears, Star-Lord goes. I was surprised at that one. Despite what Rocket might say, Star-Lord is the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and now Rocket is the only remaining Guardian left. And that's when Doctor Strange looks to Tony Stark. He's like, there's no other way. And then he fades. And then the most heartbreaking one of all, which is still not that heartbreaking because it's Spider-Man. Again, you know he's going to be back because there's another Spider-Man movie planned already. But it was just sadder because A, he was a kid, and B, he hugs Tony Stark. He's like, I don't want to go, no. Tony Stark has got to feel all that weight on him. You know, he's the one who brought Spider-Man into the fold in the first place 2 years ago. I mean, granted, he probably would have faded anyway had Tony not brought him in because, you know, but it would have been one less weight on Tony's shoulders. But anyways, that just leaves Tony Stark and Nebula. Oh yeah, Nebula's there too. And Nebula's just like, he did it. And that is pretty much where the movie ends. I mean, you know, everyone's left on Wakanda and Steve Rogers is like, oh god. And then you see Thanos sitting alone on a porch. I'm predicting that's actually like the house he grew up in. That's just a prediction I have. I don't know. But he's watching the sunset and then it cuts to black and that's the end of the movie. No big credits scene. I was like, oh damn. That was a lot. I gotta sit here in shock for a couple minutes and let it sink in. The post-credit scene is pretty awesome though. Cause it's Nick Fury and Robin Scherbatsky, I mean Maria Hill. They're starting to see the aftermath of half the population disappearing. Helicopters are crashing, cars are crashing, and then Maria Hill disappears. And so Nick Fury's like, oh okay, red alert. I gotta make a text really quick. But then he starts to fade, but he does get the text out. The device drops to the ground, and you know, everyone was like, here it comes. Sure enough, boom, the emblem for Captain Marvel comes on. Everyone's like, yeah, Captain Marvel, woo! Alright, Captain Marvel's gonna come into play. Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson. Bring it. I do have a couple of predictions for Avengers 4. Like I said, Doctor Strange's premonition, he probably saw Captain Marvel in that one outcome in which the heroes are victorious. We know she's going to be in Avengers 4 along with the other characters that were missing from this movie, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and the Wasp. Everybody's gonna come together to face Thanos and bring back that half of the population. I do love the fact that this is the movie where the villain wins. Thanos has done it. He's accomplished his goal of wiping out half the population of the universe by collecting the 6 Infinity Stones. And I read this in an article somewhere where someone predicted that like that half the population that faded away, are they inside the Soul Stone? I was like, maybe they are, because again, they had to come back. They're gonna be in Avengers 4. So how are they gonna come back? You know, we can't use the time stone to bring everyone back. Thanos has the time stone. So how are we gonna get it from him to bring everyone back? I don't know. And if they do bring back that half of the population that faded away, does that mean Gamora and Loki and Heimdall are still dead? Or could they possibly come back too? I have a feeling that when Tony Stark comes down to Earth, he's gonna find that Pepper has disappeared. Ooh, let that sink in. Holy shit, the love of his life, gone. Bet you didn't think of that, huh? When I really think about it, I really don't think Iron Man's gonna die at the end of all of this. If you ask me, I'd say Tony Stark deserves a happy ending. I think Avengers 4 is going to end with Tony Stark officially retiring as Iron Man and marrying Pepper Potts, because they deserve a happy ending together. And all the rest of the Avengers and the superheroes and the Guardians of the Galaxy are gonna be at the wedding, and it's gonna be, you know, like a nice, you know, finale to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's my prediction. We'll see what happens. But yeah, in the end, Avengers Infinity War was crazy. I do still feel like it was imperfect, but it was the most anticipated movie of the year. And overall, it just did not disappoint me. Like I said, I've seen it a few times at this point. I'd be down to see it a few more times, but I just can't help but feel that Avengers 4 is just gonna bring it all home and be the most epic Marvel movie ever. This is the beginning of the end, and in a year's time, we're gonna wrap this shit up, cause all good things must come to an end eventually. So, what was your favorite scene in Avengers Infinity War? And what are your predictions and theories for Avengers 4? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe. Jeez, I've been standing here yapping for over an hour. Thank God for editing.